outside going down the street there on your left.
Roger, I see them. We will intercept.
You doing, Jeff?
Yes. Hey, good morning. So we are joining Wade Little here from the band Malachia, which maybe a lot of my watchers and a lot of you out there in Heaven's Metal Land may not be as familiar with, though you probably are, because just 2 years ago, Roxx Records did us the benefit of reissuing pretty much everything you ever wanted and more than you ever had of their material. I mean, there was a lot of stuff on here that I had not heard of, all these demos. So this was like the end-all, be-all collection, I think, of their material. So if you picked up on this, you already know who we are and who he's talking about. But if you haven't, there are some, I believe, left. You need to go get this. So they are a band that started in the late 84, I think you say in here, and they released an album in 85. Now, the reason we are doing this conversation today is because Roxx Records is at it again, and they are reissuing the first, I guess it was an EP or sort of kind of a shorter album by Malachia, the Under the Blade. It's one of the most sought after vinyl issues ever. Oh gosh. So you're going to send me that, right? Anyway.
It's my only copy.
I had that back in the day. And back when, you know, we started getting out of vinyl in the 90s, I think I just sold my entire lot to, what was that? The organization that sold a lot of vinyl. There was like, whatever, they were at Cornerstone every year and everything. I just sold them like my whole lot, sadly. But yes, yeah.
Well, that just is a reminder for me of my nightmare that I relive of throwing away all the LPs back in the day.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because I guess I was told that story too. I guess let's just jump right into that, I guess. So this is the story the way I heard it. Basically, you all recorded it, weren't like 100% happy with it because you all had followed that up with a single or, you know, a 7-inch and decided to start selling that instead. So you kind of stopped pushing the album. And then so therefore you had a bunch of them and eventually they were in storage and eventually you thought albums are gone. You might as well just toss them. Is that kind of how it went?
Well, a little yes, a little no. But so basically, the story is after I kept everything for a few years, and then came a point where it was at that time. I think it was CDs had become popular and was growing, and so vinyl was kind of fading out, and so I had all these vinyl boxes, you know, of albums. And then I had these boxes of cassettes of Under the Blade. And so I'm thinking, well, we sold some of these, you know, we did okay. And I don't see albums as being a future anymore. You know, it was kind of like the thinking going on at a certain point. And so I just think about this. I see myself walking out to this big trash bin behind where it was working. We had a rehearsal studio. Dumping all these boxes of all these albums and think, okay, well, I've got cassettes, I got this, I got that, I'm good. And you know, this was obviously before all the eBay and everything else, and just had no idea that at some point in the future, you know, some people would want that album.
I'm scared to ask, but do you have any rough idea about how many you think you had that you tossed?
I'm trying to remember. I think when we initially did the printing of it, I think we did 500 or 1,000 albums. I can't remember. But it was probably, I think, 4 boxes, 50 albums in each one, something like that. So that went into the trash bin.
So a couple hundred then.
Yeah.
And roughly at about $500 to $600 each on eBay today. There goes that new house.
At some points along the line, all of my collectible stuff that I had of the albums and pictures and stuff like that somehow either got lost, got stolen in storage, or maybe somebody threw it away. But all of a sudden, when we started doing this, the reissued 30th anniversary, I'm thinking, wait, where's all my stuff? That's when I realized that I didn't even have a copy of Under the Blade. And our old manager, Ken Roberts, who also did some of the remastering on the anthology, he said, dude, I got one, I'll give it to you. I wasn't involved with it, at that point. So that's the only reason why I have one, is because Ken Roberts.
Wow. Show it again for us real quick. You got it there. So this, I mean, I don't have anything to show, but this is what is being reissued. If you haven't pre-ordered this on Roxx already, I pre-ordered it like the moment it went online. I got inside sources that say, go get it. And yes, so I haven't seen what the back's going to look like. I'm assuming they're going to keep kind of true like they always do. But I remember ordering this. I'm assuming I went through today actually, because I thought I'd prepare for this by trying to find the original ad where this was advertised, or a review or something. And I pulled out all of my old Heaven's Metal magazines. I mean, I have them all from the beginning, but I'm assuming I must not have bought it through Heaven's Metal, because I found nothing in there through like 86. So I have to assume it was probably another magazine that I don't have as readily available at my fingertips. I'm thinking probably White Then. They were a California magazine. So, but I remember buying it. I remember having it when I lived in the dorms when I was in the military, and I guess that would have been 85, yeah, early 86. We lived there for about a year or so, and just loving it. So
That's
what kind of struck me that when I started doing the timeline, I thought, in this in here you tell the whole story, and you talk about how in late 84 you wanted to get into a band, and then on here you got 85 demos of some of the songs that went on to be on Under the Blade. And it just kind of hit me that, late 84 would have been, Stryper had just come out with their first album in like summer of 84. So it's not like they were all of a sudden a household name. What in late 84, you were in the California scene. So you look at, when I'm looking back at all the old Heaven's Metal issues, there's bands everywhere in Kansas and Iowa and all these places. But obviously there's a big push in California, because that's where, I remember being in high school thinking I want to move to LA, because all of the bands I listen to are from California. So you're there in the California movement. Stryper was there in the California movement. They had just come out. But when you were thinking about, hey, let's put a band together, blah, blah, were they at that time even known really to you all? Were they an influence? What was driving you at that point to say, I want to play hard rock and metal type music with Christian lyrics type thing? I mean, I know a lot of bands, even though there were a lot of bands at that point that came out of there. I'm just kind of curious, what influenced a lot of you all? It couldn't have been just one band like Stryper at that time.
No, see, for me at least, growing up, I always wrote. I love to write. I'm more artistic than anything else, and so I would write lyrics. I would write poems growing up. I remember in junior high and high school, I would have a notebook with just writings and things like that. And someday I want to do something with this stuff. And so it got to a point there where I had done some stuff. I had played a little bit of baseball in some college, and I said, I really want to do a band. I want to get my lyrics. I want to get my words out there. I want to express myself. And so that's when I really got serious. And that was in that 83, 84 that I really started looking and thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? And that's why, a few years before that, I started taking bass lessons and trying to really get good enough to be in a rock band, so to speak. And there was a buddy of mine who we both said, all right, let's do a band. Let's start a band. He was a talented guy, all around musician guy, and he was going to play drums. And so we started placing the ads. We started doing all this stuff. And eventually he fell away. And then that's when, the initial kind of groundwork for Malachia started. But at that time, Stryper was big in California, especially the LA scene. Everybody heard of them. And part of it was, who's this Christian band that sounds great. I mean, they're tight. They got great lyrics, harmonies. You know, it's everything about them was you know, like a regular, you know, mainstream rock and roll band, metal band, and it was taking LA by storm. And so that started happening. And I don't know, I think if it was before that or during that early phase that it's just like, that's when I got serious about trying to get a band. But really, they were influencing California, the LA scene, before they hit the national scene. And so, and then there was some other bands that were semi-popular going on, you know, like the Barron Crossers and some other stuff. But it's like, all of a sudden, all these bands started, as soon as Stryper started making it more like accessible to have some success.
Yeah, it was just weird looking back because I mean, I was surprised. I'm like, I know all of these bands. These are the bands we grew up listening to in the 85, 86, but it was just, I don't know. For some reason, it just really hit me that, wow, this all kind of happened at the same time. I don't know. Like you said in the beginning of your notes, it's hard to remember 30 years ago. I mean, we're talking, 35, 40 years. It's just like, it just hit me. I was just like, wow, all of this, it's like it happened overnight. So, and of course, I was always on the East Coast, and all I know is when it became national. So, and you hear the stories, but it's like, I don't know what happened on the Sunset Strip and what all these bands were. You just hear the stories. And I didn't realize, just how influential Stryper was on that scene. So, or how popular they were at that time. But all I knew is that every band that came out of California when I was growing up in high school, every band that had hair and band spandex and bandanas and makeup, I was buying. And I wanted to move out there because every band I listened to, Motley Crue, Rat, everybody in the early 80s, they came from there. And so I guess, I didn't hear about Stryper until around 84 when the album came out. So, but yeah. And so that kind of, I guess, sort of, they were kind of an influence because I guess they were more well known than I guess I had anticipated. So did you know of any other bands? I mean, you knew of the Barron Crosses and stuff, but were there any other bands, Guardian and bands like that you maybe were friends with, or that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Holy Soldier. We did some shows, I think, with them, and at one point we had talked with their drummer about becoming our drummer, and early on, and we actually had an agreement, but then he felt the Lord was telling him to stay in his band, and so we were kind of disappointed because he was an amazing drummer, and he still is.
Yeah, so he's still active too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it was, there was some other bands, I didn't even remember their names, that we did a lot of shows, because we would also set up shows, and we would rent out halls or just things like that to play in. And so we got different bands throughout the years. And I just, man, I'm trying to think of other bands, but I don't know if we ever did anything with Guardian. And but I think a lot of the other bands we played with in the Christian scene kind of just faded away after time. And there's only a few of them that really stuck it out and was able to develop a following of some sort.
I know in the notes for the anthology, you mentioned the show with you all, and I think, you all and Inner Light and Eternal Right.
Oh yeah, Eternal Right, yeah.
Now, Eternal Right, interestingly enough, their album's getting reissued on vinyl again too, and or I should, for the first time or whatever. So they went on to do, the one album, but Inner Light was another band that I had the cassette for, listened to back in the day. I think I remember listening to that at the same time. I must have bought it around the same time I bought your all's album. So, yeah, never heard anything beyond that of what they did. So, but yeah, just like I say, it kind of struck me that in that short time frame, and of course you've got, I should have left it out, but you got the beginning of Heaven's Metal. Here's this little punk kid in Texas in 1985 starting a magazine with a photocopied picture of Stryper on it, and I was flipping through a lot of those old issues and just all the stuff I had highlighted of all the bands that I bought back then. And I'm just like, wow, here his magazine is in 85 around the summer, right after the Stryper explosion, but yet it's full of all these other bands that are up and coming. And it was like an explosive movement. And so then on the scene comes your all's first album. And then I guess we don't, again, over on the East Coast area, we don't hear much. And then all of a sudden, a year or so later, pops up. I'll go ahead and mention the Red Sunrise. You got any inside scoop? Is this going to be next to be reissued on vinyl from Roxx?
That's up to Bob, man. I mean, Bob's amazing. The fact that he even wanted to do the anthology is amazing, and that he was one of our biggest fans, back in the day. And so I'm amazed at Bob and all he's done, and so thankful for him and Roxx Records and everybody else that's associated, because without them, not only with our stuff, but so many bands would be forgotten.
They're doing a great.
So it's cool.
They're doing great justice for all of those of us who were there.
Yeah.
And who collected all of the tapes and are now getting these things reissued. And I think we the fans are probably the ones who are pushing him to keep putting this out. And of course, as long as we the fans continue to buy it, I'm hoping he'll continue to put it out. And so, it's like we're seeing a resurgence of 1985, 1986 all over with the stuff that is coming out. And then, of course, with the vinyl resurgence, which I jumped on board about 3 years ago on 2017, started buying records again. And I have way too many now. But
I don't know. Is there ever really too many albums?
No, there's not. You have to say that out loud, though, so that your wife and people can, make it feel like you at least think you're aware of it. But
hey, I think there is that somebody in Greece is selling Under the Blade. It's at $900 and change right now. So you keep an eye on that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I kicked myself for the albums I got rid of back in the day, but even on the mainstream secular side, in 1985 I had a life moment and decided at that point in September of 1985 to make a life. I was brought up in the church, but I listened to a lot of secular music, and I knew that was my one vice. I was never a bad boy, never drank, never smoked, never did drugs, any of that stuff. And my vice, I was brought up in church, and I always told people the one thing that I had as a vice was I listened to, rock music. And they tried to turn me on to check out Petra. And I just was like, are you kidding me? This, I'm listening to Kiss and Motley Crue and all of this stuff, and you're giving me, not of this world. Anyway, I love Petra now. But back then, there was nothing like that. So in 1985, I made a decision. I threw all of my records out. Hundreds of Iron Maiden imports. I bought everything import that I could get my hands on. I feel bad about that now, because now I'm spending a lot of money trying to recuperate all of it. But in 1985, threw it all away, and my albums went from hundreds down to a Striper album. I went out and found the other Christian rock albums at that time. Barnabas, the first Saint album, the first Messiah Prophet album, and the first Leviticus album. And then shortly thereafter, around that same time, Soldiers Under Command came out. So 2 Striper albums. And then later I was introduced to like Philadelphia. They were kind of a local band to where I was stationed at that time in Mississippi. So yeah. And then later in the 90s, do all that stuff away. So anyway.
Hey, going back to how you described your life moment, your transition and so forth. And it's kind of similar with me and what I was going through, because I grew up in the church as well. And so as a teenager, rebelled, did different stuff, did some of the stuff you didn't do, that you mentioned. But there came a point in my late teens, early 20s where I said, all right, I want to live my life for God. And I want to do music that's going to represent God. I wasn't trying to be a Christian, have a Christian band or be a Christian band, but I wanted members. I wanted to have people in there who were Christians. So what we were doing was positive, was solid. And again, as we started developing this, as I started developing it, and Striper became popular, we could see that you could have success if you do it right. And so that was the main thing for me, was making sure that I did everything right spiritually, as well as I could find the best musicians that I possibly could to play with and to help develop this. I remember one night just sitting in bed, 1 o'clock in the morning, I think, something like that. And I'm looking through the Bible. I'm thinking, okay, what name do I want for this band? And so I'm looking around, I'm reading different things, and I come to the book of Malachia, and I'm looking at that, and then I see the name Malachia, but with an H at the end, and messenger of God, messenger of Jehovah. I'm like, that's what I want. And so I just basically took the H off, and so it became Malachia with the A at the end. And so that was my message. And I had early business cards that had Malachia underneath. It said messenger of Jehovah, and things like that. And so that's what my impetus was in trying to develop a band that could be uh, good, that could be positive, and that could hopefully do something.
Cool. All right. So Under the Blade, why don't you give us some background? I mean, memories of that time frame. It was interesting on the anthology. You have the 85 demos, some songs that later onto that, and you've told some stories. You all told some stories about going in the studio there, but it's, here it is. It's about to be restored and brought to a new crowd. Give us some tidbits on, exciting things that happened or how it happened, or, any fond memories or, bad memories if you want. Change the names to protect the innocent, even though there are no innocents. So.
Right. Well, basically, we had gone into a small studio and we recorded some albums, and a friend of mine had been friends with Gene Simmons and his wife now. And so the idea was, okay, let's we'll go to the studio, we'll put some tracks down and see if we can get some interest. So after that faded away, I think Scott and I, Scott was a big proponent of just, hey, we got to get something on vinyl. We got to record something. We got to do something. We're ready to do this. And we're like, okay, well, let's figure this out. Let's see what we need to do. And so we basically figured out what songs we would want to do. Got those down as tight as we could. And then it was a matter of, okay, how are we going to pay for this? And so fortunately, my dad and my mom said, okay, well, we'll help finance this. And so they're the ones who basically, paid for the studio time. And it was my job to kind of manage everything, while in the recording and making sure we kept to a reasonable budget. But we basically, Scott found this studio in Hollywood, I think it was called Track Records. And we used one of their engineers, and we started recording. And we had fun. We would go in at night after other bands had been there, and I forget some of the mainstream bands that had recorded there. And then we would go in at night, and we would record our stuff and go into early morning hours and go home. And we did that for a few weeks, and just did everything we could to try to make it the best. But especially at that time, we were over our heads in production, and we just did what we thought sounded good, which isn't always the right thing. It was, the album obviously could have been better. It could have sounded better with different things and eliminated some things, and like the crowd noise, in Christ We Rock, which, it just gets annoying.
It is a little overpowering.
Yeah. I forgot that the slide nozzle goes down so the volume can go down. And
when the vocals come in, you turn the crowd down some. It's pretty steady all the way.
It would have been great to have another set of ears in there to really say, okay, this is what we need to do here and so forth. But for what it was and what we wanted to do, we did a decent job.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that just struck me also. In that day and age, almost every band had a cassette out. Some were just TDK duplicated, self-duplicated with the magic marker writing. Some were actually maybe they were typewritten labels, but they were still, and maybe the J card itself was somewhat professional, and some were professional. You all come flying out of the gate as a nobody band with an album and a professional cassette. So obviously your parents did you all good, because back then there weren't many bands. I was buying everything I could out of the magazines at that time, and I think you all, and a couple years later, like Emerald, very few bands came out of the gate with an actual record. So, I mean, you all were already a step above. And I don't know how the album did for you all, but I just know that I loved it. And of course, I was a little loner, didn't know any friends back in that days that listened to it. But so, and you did tell them.
It's interesting in that when the album came out, and then we started doing some interviews, radio stations, and it was college stations. And it was the college stations mainly on the East Coast, and it seemed like we had a bigger following on the East Coast than we did on the West Coast. So it was really interesting how that panned out.
Huh. Yeah, because I mean, well, I guess we were starving over there. At the time it came out, I was in the military station in Mississippi, which is, nobody tours Mississippi. So I got to see nobody in that time. I was down there for like 10 years and just, no concerts.
Go to bed and dream of you to see. What's not in you, but lonely
went over well, I guess, enough to where you all come in with a second album. And again, a second album. Now, the label that this is on, is this Victoria Unlimited? Is this a self-released, or is this a
Well,
label?
yeah. So Wade Records, or Wade Productions, or whatever it was the family business that we set up to produce all this stuff. And then Ken Roberts' label and he's the one who came in and then helped produce Red Sunrise. Victoria Records, whatever it is, that was his business, his label, and so forth. So that's where that name came from.
Okay. So you all never, I mean, so that sort of still kind of feels, I guess, more self-released. You're not like on a label.
Right.
So I assume you all were searching for a label. Was there any kind of, traction there? Did you all have anybody looking at you, or?
We would, there would be, we'd always hear, we do shows and there would be label reps, in the shows and different things, different times. And at one point, later on, when we did the Runaway song, we were talking at one point with John and Dino Elefante about, their label that they were doing. And, but that didn't work out. So yeah, everybody obviously wanted, a major label, at some point to try and do that. And we were no different. And, just for us, it turned out, we were able to, like you said, we were able to self-produce the first album and then redo on Red Sunrise and add a couple tracks. Yeah, it was just, it's interesting because even, some of the bands, the mainstream bands that made it in LA at the time, you had bands like Motley Crue that, they were hugely popular, but, there were bands that were better musicians and better players than them that weren't as popular. And so you just never knew what was going to happen and how things would fall out. All you could do is try.
Yeah. And of course, I know a lot of bands at that time frame who did get signed to major labels in the Christian market that I won't even mention names, but there's one or two.
That's one thing we didn't want, because at that time still, when a Christian label was kind of like, it seemed like it would be a death sentence because they wouldn't put the money into what needed to be done. And, and that's what was so amazing to see with Stryper's success, is that they were able to find a mainstream avenue and have that success. And so again, that sparked everybody's desire to want to go that way as well.
Yeah, because I've heard so many of the horror stories for the labels that were signing all the Christian bands. I'm surprised they didn't, they signed everybody. They were signing everybody. And not paying anybody. And so I've heard a lot of those stories. And I've actually heard a lot of stories, not well, a lot. I've heard a couple stories of people who were in Christian bands on a Christian label, not this label, but they got screwed over so bad that they've turned their back on Christianity now, because it's just like, it's a Christian business, but it's not really Christian. So I know a lot of people got burned back then, and it's, glad to see a band that was able to still do what they did, without going through that. Right. And it's nice now to see that, labels like Roxx and Girder Music and Retroactive are now able to, I don't know how well they're making it right, but they're able to bring this stuff back out and give credit where credit is due, and, hopefully not, maybe repair some of the damage. I don't know, but just to bring it back to a new audience. So, with this release, so when's the band get back together and touring? Come on now. It's time for the reunion, right?
Well, I would say when Hell Freezes Over, but that's already been used.
Okay. That'll be the title of a new album.
Well, listen, I haven't played in years. I walked away from that, retired. I know Jeff he plays. He's got his own studio in his house, and he does stuff with friends and plays around more in between when he's not doing his chiropractic business. Ken is Ken. Ken's doing his stuff. Dave, I'm not sure if he still plays or not. And Chima's up in Washington, and he's playing all over the place and doing stuff. But as far as there's never going to be a whole reunion, and part of it is again, for me, it's still there's that spiritual aspect to it. There's that being like-minded in our faith, and not everybody's like that anymore. And so it's just fortunate. So that would, for me, would stop any kind of reunion or anything like that.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, a lot of bands don't talk to each other anymore. Just move on. So yeah, I mean, Cheaper's only been 30-something years. What's the problem here?
Yeah, but listen, I do every once in a while think, man, it'd be nice to get together with like with Jeff and Buddy and just try to do something, even something beyond what we did. You know, just do a couple releases or a couple songs, like more heavy, more thrash or something, and just try to do something and see what happens. So I don't know, maybe something might happen, but we'll see what happens.
So yeah, I mean, with this reissues and stuff, I mean, what has obviously it probably has you thinking, not, you know, we don't anticipate that happening, but what do you see this leading to? Just more people being aware of what you all did in the past? And I mean, is that?
I think so. I think it's kind of honoring and humbling in a way, that thinking that there's still people out there who are interested in what we did, you know, 35 years ago. And then, you know, the little trinkets that I found, like a couple of some shirts, old original Malachia t-shirts and some buttons, you know, and you know, 2 or 3 years ago when I found some of the 45s that we did, the singles, you know, and all that stuff. And to kind of get some of that out there also is kind of cool, because it's so hard to find. And I kind of had forgotten that I even had this stuff. And so I think it's just kind of like, yeah, the opportunity to let other people in this generation, and the generation that I grew up in and played for, to hear what we did. And some will like it, some won't, but you know, at least it's out there for people to check out.
Yeah, to experience. It's nostalgic for those of us who were there, and of course it'll help squash the, you know, eBayers that are selling the album for $1,000. But yeah, I know. I saw that that when he put on the Roxx site, he had the package deal where you could get like the cassette and the T-shirt. I didn't splurge for that. I kind of kicked myself, but there's just so much that they released that you have to buy that I just couldn't do that. But now I don't remember him showing. I know the picture is in here of the single. You said you found some of those. Is that I didn't see him. He's not selling those. He doesn't have those, does he? That would be.
He did. I don't know if he still has any. I'm looking here right now, actually, at his site, and I don't see the anthology, but I could be missing it. Because he's got the new stuff, you know, the collection and the Ultimate Malachia Fan.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, I don't see the single on there anymore. So maybe those are all gone. I have seen the singles on eBay.
I never seen him list the singles. I would have scooped one of those up because of the whole vinyl revolution here. But
okay. No, when he first came out with the 30th anniversary, he had some of those that he sold.
Huh. Maybe he put them on eBay and didn't have them on his site, or I don't know. I just don't recall seeing them. What was on?
Hey Jeff, we'll talk later because I'll get you one.
Oh, that'd be nice. What was on the single? That was after Under the Blade, but before Red Sunrise. Were they just songs that eventually made it to Red Sunrise, or were they re-recordings of anything?
It was Master's Call and Red Sunrise, I believe it was. Red Sunrise was the A side, and Master's Call was the B side.
Okay, and so they were just recordings that later appeared on the album. They weren't like re-recordings.
No, yeah, it was. We did redo those. So it was more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so it was just a chance for us to get something out there in the marketplace, and to have giveaways that we would do at shows and things like that. You know, throw them out to the crowd as well. It's, you know, to hopefully kind of build a little more of a following and desire for our material.
Yeah, I remember there were a couple bands that actually did 45 vinyl singles back then. So it was like mostly cassettes, a rare band like you all that would put on an album, but then there were a couple singles, and then like Chosen Stranger, another band, I think they were from like Illinois, they released single 45s. So some bands were doing that, and I had never back in the day saw you all had did that. So when I saw it in here, I'm like, what? A single I didn't have? So yeah, I didn't like it. It was such a novelty back then to see a band of your all stature, an up and coming unsigned band, put out a physical material that wasn't just a cassette tape. So
well, again, it was kind of like what we were trying to do, and my desire especially was getting something out there that would keep the name going, that would be something that fans and others would want to try to get or want to buy. And
right,
so, you know, you've got to be putting stuff out there to keep the interest, and as well as to get people to come to the shows.
Yeah. I just wish I lived in California. I'd have all that stuff.
You know what? Back in the day, California was a good state.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to be there now, but back then, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have anything else you want to share? Like I said, I don't want to keep you too terribly long, but any other stories you want to tell about that time being a young kid and then in the
Ah,
doing the up and
well,
coming stuff?
I was thinking about that, and one of the things I thought about was some of the different places, the clubs we played, and like, yeah, I don't know if you ever heard of the Palomino Club.
I've heard of a lot of those places. Yeah.
So
Good
it was
morning,
this
Robin.
little kind of, yeah, little kind of country western bar, club, restaurant, but it had an amazing history, like Johnny Cash, and just all these artists back in, especially in the '60s, played there. And so we got to play there one time, and to walk into this place, and it is, on North Hollywood, California, Lancashire Boulevard. It's like this little hole in the wall club, and you could drive by it and miss it. But it was just like in the thing you were looking at. There's the top right there. If you look at that, there's the part of the ticket,
Right.
Bastille, which was a friend of ours, and it had that horseshoe, in the sign and everything. But it was just legendary. Jerry Lee Lewis and others who had played there over the years, and so it was really cool to play there. And there was another club in down the street from there called FM Station, Filthy McNasty's, which again it was one of those hot spots in the valley where bands, and big name bands would go to play these little gigs. And so to be able to play places like that was really cool and a lot of fun, and it was experience.
Did you ever have any experiences like where you were able to play with some other main band, some other mainstream, or in any of these places, bands who are now popular? I mean, did you ever open for anybody good? Any experiences with bands you
Well,
played
the
with?
only thing I think like that would be like the Metal Mardi Gras,
Right.
and
Oh, that
just
was
all
a
that.
full day there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we did that. I think there was his what was that one? His thing up here. His two, which
Oh
was
yeah.
yeah, the big concert and a bunch of bands. And I don't even remember all the bands that were there, but I know that like Metal Mardi Gras was, you had I think like what was it? Guardian, other bands, but there were some big name bands at that time who were really popular, who were headlining it. And so that was really cool to be able to be in that environment with all these other popular and cool bands. And it's
Yeah,
fun.
that was another thing that us on the other coasts were, we'd always see things like, well, the Metal Mardi Gras, that was a big thing. And I had the video tape that they released where they had like one or two songs from everybody on that. But then I made a contact with one of the bands. I won't mention names, but one of the band's guitar players' nephews or cousin was there, and in the front videotaping all the bands, like with the handheld bootleg recorder. And this
Right.
particular guitar player from this particular band sent me a copy of like every band's, the whole
Oh,
show.
wow.
So it
Cool.
was nice because, well, like for instance, he sent me the Deliverance show. Deliverance wasn't on the actual videotape because it was a pretty bad set. They had technical difficulties and they didn't want the songs in there. But I've got, the entire set there. I mean, you've got Marcus, the guitar player for Deliverance, thrash band. He's out there playing a glitter gold guitar from, over the Soldier Guys, and just some things like that. But yeah, so I have, I think I have most all the bands, but I'm not, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if he included all the daytime bands like Malachia or Hero or some of those bands. But I do have like the Guardians and the Blood Goods and the Soldier and Deliverance. They were kind of daytime bands, but
Yeah.
yes. And then I guess they were called the His festivals or whatever. I know there's a couple of those. And I believe that was Keith Miles from Holy Right. Didn't he was kind of, I think.
I don't remember. I just remember we were at his two, I think is what the one we did.
Right. And then the Metal Midnights. Maybe there was also the Metal Midnight, which was another series. Maybe that was the one that Keith did. I don't know. The only reason I think of Keith is because I had a magazine back in the day before I was involved in Heaven's Metal with the resurrection of Heaven's Metal. But I had my own magazine, and actually Keith, the singer from Holy Right, later Titanic, he did my logo for my magazine. So so we
Right,
should talk
okay.
about that. But I think he sponsored a lot of those concerts. And yeah, they were just chocked full of all the bands that I had demos from at the day. So back in the day. So
Now, I
yeah.
think the only other thing story wise that is of interest is after I don't know what it was it 87, 88, right around there, probably 88, even 89. But, we were at a point in the band, this was, Ken was there and Jeff, myself, and I think it was Dave Devon was still drumming. And I think Chima had left at that point. But I remember we were in our rehearsal studio room, and Ken comes in, and Jeff and I and Dave were there. We were jamming around, and Ken has this interesting look about him. And I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. So he kind of sits down in the corner, and so we always started off by we would talk, we would pray, and then we rehearse, and so he's just sitting around there, and so at one point he goes, well, I got something I want to say. And I looked at him and I said, Ken wants to leave the band. And he looked at me and he's like, yeah.
Huh.
And so we had this little discussion, and so and this is, it's 35 years later. So you can, but for about a half hour, 45 minutes, he just went on about, how he wants to leave and everything. And both Jeff and I are looking at each other and we're like, okay, well, then go, leave. And so finally he did leave. And so we looked at each other again and we're like, is he ever going to leave? And so it was just, one of those things. And we've been having, everybody has their quirks and their ticks, and especially, you have things about drummers and, personalities and singers. And, I have my mic, and that's all I'm going to do is, I load up my mic and that's it. I don't help out doing anything else or things like that. So there's different things, stories like that. And I've always liked Ken and everything, but, it was that time for a separation. And even a couple of years ago when we finally talked, after a few years here and there, and of some limited communication because of some issues, but he even said, yeah, I wish I would have handled things differently. I wish I would have just done some different things, because we could have really done more. And I said, yeah, we could have. And but he's doing his thing now. Everybody else is doing whatever they're doing. So, it is what it is. And I'm excited and happy that we've got something that, again, that Roxx Records and Bill, who's just a big fan of ours, and he's a great guy, and that he's doing this again. And it's just, it's really exciting. And I'm really, because there is a big desire, which is shocking to me, that in the Christian metal genre, that people want this album, and people, want to get their hands on it. And so I'm excited that at least now there's something out there that more people can get.
But Bill is actually pressing less copies of this album than you threw away.
This is true. This is true. And
Just keep rubbing that in.
Yeah, maybe for him, in another couple of years, he'll be able to sell these things for $300 or $400 or $500. I don't know, but yeah, that's a reoccurring nightmare of the vision of me throwing all those in that dumpster.
I just keep bringing that up. Yeah, I mean, I'm not on the business aspect like they are, but sometimes I scratch my head just thinking, because of my love for this music, I'm like, how is it they're only pressing 100 copies? There should be thousands of people that like this album. But it's like, it's just great to have it again, and especially now with vinyl, and especially if they remaster. Those of us who want it, we're gonna buy it. And yeah, 5 years from now, when people can't get it, sorry, sucker, you should have bought it. But then you're like, maybe I should press it. But
there may, I mean, if he sells them out, and there may be desire to, hey, wait, let's do this again, and like, okay, let's do it again. We'll see. But
yeah, like I say, even with the CD, if it looks like this is not on the site, then maybe this has been sorted out, because all of these are limited. And he did do the limited amount with the Metal Mardi Gras. And he does that. They do that a lot, and I tend to jump right on these, because I was here at this time frame and I want to get all I can. So you buy the one with the bonus disc, and then I have no intent of ever selling it down the road, but sadly, people who don't act or don't know about it miss out, and then it becomes a high commodity again. So well, I am excited. I'm excited that this is happening. I know there's been and you mentioned it in the notes on this, you've got the people that like Under the Blade more because it's heavier than Red Sunrise. I'll admit, in the day, I'm one of those people. I loved Under the Blade. And then when this came out, I was just like, keyboards, come on, come on. But you know, as you grow and you mature, or try to think you do, you realize that, you know, it's all good. Now,
Yeah.
when you go back and listen to like the California metal stuff with the Elefante brothers and that one song Runaway, that I can't imagine a whole album of that. That is you all sound amazing. But you know, again, you're in a studio, you've got Dino and John behind you.
Yeah.
They make everybody sound good, and some people think they make everybody sound the same. When you listen to those albums, it's like all the background vocals, but you know, I when I revisit that song, I'm just like, I want to hear, this is what I want to hear. I want to hear Red Sunrise with this production.
Yeah, and that's where we were going. And that's because some of those the garage tapes or demo tape songs that we do, some of those were after Red Sunrise. That a lot of them that Jeff wrote, which were amazing because you know, he was a GIT grad and all that stuff, and just a technical player. And he really didn't get a chance when he came into the band. He was playing stuff that was already written for the most part, and so the stuff that he wrote was just amazing. He had one song that had like 4 different time changes in it, and it was fun. And so it was that runaway sound. And again, to be in a studio with professionals like John and Dino, and to see John working with Ken on vocals, and this Steve Ken just, you know, with this big smile on his face, thinking, man, I'm being worked here by this amazing singer, and that's why it sounds so good. Is when you have the right equipment, when you have a good song, and then you have the producers that can bring out the little things, the new things, changing things. That's when the song sounds great, and that's what we were hoping to do in the future.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. I think it just would have been. I was one of the ones back then that, you know, I believed that anything John and Dino touched was gold because they made everybody sound better. I do know there are people out there, like I say, who think that they make everybody sound more poppy, but I don't know. The California Metals, the band, the things that they worked on, the bands, the Mastodon that they worked, you know, they did. Every band that seems like they touched was just top notch. And so, yeah, to hear you all after they got a hold of you, I'm like, yeah, now this is what I'd like to hear.
You need to feel the pain that's driving me insane. Run away, run away,
It is sad that it didn't go any further, but you know, things happen and Ken had to leave, so you know. But well, okay, well, it's been great just reminiscing about this because you know, again, I didn't experience it firsthand in California like you all did, but you know, this music is near and dear to me, and it keeps us going, and I'm glad to see this stuff coming back out, getting remastered. So again, I'm opening it up. If you have anything else you want to share, I'm free for all. This has just been great, you know, reminiscing about this.
I don't know, man. I think that's pretty much, you know, the gist of it. You know, it was a fun time, you know, being able to do what we did and be able to have that avenue to express, you know, and to be on shows, even though we weren't the most popular band as far as in the Christian scene at that time, because we didn't fit the mold, especially once we had keyboards. You know, there was a little bit of of animosity towards us in that Orange County, especially Christian scene, which was interesting. Because you kind of think that things like that wouldn't happen in the Christian, world, but it does. And so we got through that. But it was we had a lot of good times and met a lot of cool people, and we had fun. And it's great to be able to reminisce and not only just talking with you about it and seeing what you were like at that, in the 80s and what you liked and different things. But again, like I said before, to be able to know that this will be available, a quality recording is available now for people who wanted this album. And I hope it does well. I hope Bill, sells out of them, and because he put the money into this. So I hope he does well with it.
Yeah, I'm sure when Ken walked out, when you all called it quits, I'm sure you probably weren't thinking, hey, 30-something years from now, somebody's going to want to repress these albums. So yeah, it's great that a new generation can experience it. And I'm excited. I can't wait till they arrive. So, and I hope it does well.
Do you know Olaf?
Yes, I saw his name was even mentioned in here. Back in the day, I used to think I was one of the only people that was crazy that knew all of this stuff. But then, of course, the internet comes around, and then Facebook comes around, and then you find out that there's the Olafs and the Ryan Jennings out there that have a collection bigger than you probably did. And it's neat because you get to connect with these people. And
exactly,
there seems like there's a lot of people that still nostalgic want to have that stuff. And so that's why it's not shocking to find Under the Blade for hundreds of dollars online, because there is a demand for it. And I would think that Bill pressing these, it should sell out like that. I mean, because even though it's a reissue, some people want to collect the original issue. I think people just want to have a copy of it. And I think it's going to be great that they can finally get a copy.
And I want to hear what it sounds like too. So that's the thing too, with the technology now and what they're able to do and to tweak it and to remaster it. I'm interested to compare both. I don't know if I'd ever put my copy on a player, but I really want to hear what this new one sounds like. And so I'm excited about that.
They always do a good job. I know with Rob and them doing the remastering, they always do a good job on the vinyl. I'm amazed at some of the stuff that comes out and CD. I'm just like, wow, it just sounds so cool. Because I like the way that, like, when Rob does his remastering, he's not part of the volume wars. A lot of remastering is just turn it up, make it louder. And so I notice a lot of times I'll get a remastered CD and I'll have the original and I'll compare them, A and B test them, and the remaster is softer, which is odd because you expect it to be louder. But when you crank that sucker up louder, the division of the instruments and everything, it's different than just having a loud CD where everything is cranked up. So when they remaster them for vinyl, it's just that much better because you've got a little wider range there. So yeah, I'm excited to hear it too, and how that's going to be. I mean, I don't have an original copy to compare it to, but I have an original digital copy that I ripped from the vinyl years ago. So yeah, they do a great job, and it's just great to see them coming out with that. And so yeah.
Cool.
Well, all right. Well, then I guess we'll end it there. I didn't realize we've been going this long. It's just, I could talk forever about my childhood, and you're part of the childhood. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Well, for all of those who are watching and made it this far, get over to Roxx. If you haven't already, Roxx Records, pre-order this album. If you're watching this and it's a couple months later than it's posted, sorry, you're probably out of luck. They are gone. But we at least have some more of these in circulation now, and another generation can listen to them, and hopefully not just a bunch of us who were there at that time buy them all up for people. But anyway, it's going to be great. It's a great album. I hope that they continue releasing this. It's been great that they put out all of this material here. Now if we can get all of this put on vinyl, that'd be great too. So, but anyway, thanks for you all, and thanks for Wade for joining me. It's been great connecting. Sure. And like I say, I hope this does well and the band's name gets back out there, and just people have some great music to listen to, because it's great stuff. And thanks a lot.
I appreciate this.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and we will see you next time. Heaven's Metal Magazine. Later.
Take care, everyone.